Okay, peace and blessings, everyone. My name is Maury Yutak Ben-Dan. I am one of the teachers of Congregation Bay DCB and also a member of AmZadik.org. We are a organization of individuals who actually are concerning different plights of our people in the nation. And one of the issues we want to talk about today is concerning the NFL's current policy on kneeling during the national anthem. Currently on our website, we have a Boycott the NFL 2018. And while we have that boycott, a lot of people want to understand why we boycotting the NFL in 2018. Well, it's of our opinion that this current policy that the NFL has on the books is something that is discriminatory and violates the constitutional rights of the players and could possibly have trickling effects for other people in the country if other organizations continue to adopt policies as such. One of those things being is that we look at it as a reintroduction of the black codes in this country. The players felt that they wanted to kneel because of the social injustices in this country and the different things concerning police brutality that continue to go on in this country year after year. So when the players decided to do a silent protest, it was a way to bring awareness to the country and actually spark the conversation so that we can begin to have a resolution to these things happening in the country. However, the NFL took the approach that these players kneeling during the national anthem was actually a distraction to football, and we all know that that's not the case. So that as we begin to do this push for the NFL boycott, and we have these things being known in the public, that it will allow, as we begin to affect the NFL's bottom line, which is money, that the players will begin to have their voice heard, and the NFL would have to take a different approach concerning the national anthem, that they won't penalize players for their constitutional rights, and that as we see that the players have a platform to have their voices heard, that the NFL won't continue to stymie them for that platform. We do know and understand that the NFL has stopped at this point as of September 8, 2018, and has said that there will be no penalty for players who protest during the anthem. However, there's an official rule still on the book that stops and says that players can be penalized, that if they protest during the anthem, and until they change that, then we're going to continue to boycott the NFL.
Pass it to the next man.
Shalom, brothers and sisters. Chief Naftali Ben-Dan, member of the DCB congregation, also chairman and one of the founding members of Ahm Zadik. Here with my brothers Maury Yutak and Aam Zadik, also founding members of Ahm Zadik, just to discuss some things about the protest. We want to make sure that it's clearly understood that we are expressing our dissatisfaction with policies that are punitive when it comes to self-expression. Oftentimes what we see is that people in power and people that have this sense of authority to throw their money around want to penalize, especially our brothers and sisters in the NFL, our brothers in the NFL mainly, for self-expression, and to take away self-expression from individuals when they are non-violently protesting. It shows a bad example to the rest of this country on how we should protest. We're upset if we riot, we're upset if we curse, we're upset if we do anything that's maybe not lawful. But this is a person that has a platform, or people that have platforms and are taking a civil, non-violent approach to express what they feel is things that are wrong in this country. It's some of the best things that an individual could do is to use their platform to get across to the public. In the late 50s, during the Montgomery, Alabama boycott, the essence of that wasn't really about trying to do anything violent, but it was necessary because the protest of the boycott was to show the world, not just America, but the world, the mistreatment that's going on in certain parts of the South concerning black people. And what they did was to hit the bus company in their pocket by boycotting traveling on the bus, by coming together in solidarity, walking, wearing out their shoes, carpooling, bikes, doing whatever they can. They tried to counteract that with more laws. They tried to counteract the movement with more laws. But what actually happened was they had to start laying off bus drivers because they couldn't afford to pay them, because not enough people, that black money wasn't supporting the bus company. So we want to take that same approach to make sure that our voices are heard. What they have on us is the fact that we don't practice solidarity when it comes to these things. You know, that we see people who take their rights being taken away and we do nothing about it, we say nothing about it.
Right.
So what we're asking for is people to show some solidarity towards this cause, to make sure that the NFL, which is consists of 70% black players, 70% black players are supported, because without those black players, we wouldn't have an NFL. So they should have the right to express themselves. They should have the right not to fear repercussion, because they lawfully and non-violently express themselves. And I hope we can take this into consideration and make sure that we have a stance and a presence and a statement, so that this doesn't become infectious towards other things that our people are involved in. Thank you.
All honors and praises to the Most High God. Again, I'm Zadik, and now one of the teachers here at Congregation DCB, and as also was mentioned, one of the founding members of the faith-based and community organization Ahm Zadik. One of the things that, in addition to what my colleagues have mentioned, one of the things that I think needs to be considered is this. The First Amendment of the Constitution indicates that Congress shall not make any law to abridge the freedom of speech. That's the legislative body of the United States of America. Now, if the legislative body of the United States of America does not put a law on the books to indicate or to stymie any of the freedom of speech efforts that people put forth, then organizations should not be able to come up with penalties for something that the legislative body of the country has not indicated and deemed are illegal. And for that, this is what's happening here. Before I go into the Montgomery boycott, before I go into the NFL boycott for a minute, and even discussing, considering the Montgomery boycott, one of the things that happens with us as a people is everyone else has a right to express themselves. We, as individuals, need to have that same right. And as we express ourselves as individuals, what we also need to do is support each other when those rights are expressed, when those feelings and those thoughts and those emotions are expressed, especially when those emotions and thoughts are expressed in a manner that's respectful and compliant with all U.S. regulated laws and governing policies. One of the things that, going back about 20 years or so, there was an NBA player, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, which also known as Chris Jackson, who took the similar approach, where when the Star Spangled Banner was sung, he was over on the bench. And what actually happened was he did it the first week, and it was him, and that was his issue, and that was his concern. But what happened is, as his silent stance started to gain media attention, that's when this issue came to fruition and became a major issue for the NBA. And that's actually what happened with Colin Kaepernick. The first week he did it, it was not an issue, but then as it started to gain media attention, and it actually started to gain negative attention from the NFL, that's when this became an issue. And the unfortunate part is, when it came to Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, there was no support of Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. He was there left alone, he was fined, and he was suspended. At the end, because he articulately expressed himself, they were able to come up with an agreement on how he could express himself still while showing what they deem as respect for the Star Spangled Banner and the flag. Here, where you have the difference is when Colin Kaepernick took his first knee, and then now people started to support it, and this became an adverse attention to the NFL, to the point where other people started to get involved. They started to tweet about it, and then it became a divisive issue. At the time that it became a divisive issue, the NFL as an entity had a choice. They could have done, they said they were going to look at this, because the first week after the tweets, everybody protested. Players, owners, locked arm in arm, and everyone agreed that this was a protest. Because at that point, the protest was a response to the aggressive tweets that were coming against them just for the respectful stance that they took. Afterward, it started to fade a little bit, and then what the NFL did, because now you had people on the other side saying, this is disrespectful, we're not going to support, and we're going to withdraw our financial support. So at that point, the NFL said, let's stop for a minute, we will make a law, but before we make a decision on how this is going to be done, what we're going to do is we're going to include the players who feel so passionately about this issue, and we're going to find a way together to be able to find an effective way for them to express themselves regarding these social issues of social injustices, and the things that were going on with that after the season was over. And the threat was, for the most part, abated. What the NFL did, without discussion or conversation with any of the players who had this heartfelt issue, what they did was they went and they came to an agreement on fines regarding any type of public display of protest. You can stay in a locker room if you want, and that can be your protest, but for you to display a protest in front of everybody, that we're not going to tolerate, and that's going to bring forth consequences and repercussions. So our response to that is you went back on your word to speak with the players to come up with a mutually convenient way that their thoughts and their feelings could be expressed, and this was the result of it, and the bottom line result of that was money. One of the last things that I want to mention that I think that we all should consider is God made us all as unique individuals. And we, unfortunately, this conversation of oppression and all of those different things, people don't like to talk about it because they want to suppress the fact that we have been oppressed. And they don't want us to talk about that, they just want it to quietly go away. But what everyone needs to understand is everyone has their own purpose and everyone has their own feelings. So when you talk about these feelings, we understand, we agree. We're all Americans, and for the most part, what we've all done is we've all played by the books. However, a couple of things that need to be considered is this. When the flag that they want us to stand up and pledge allegiance for, when that flag was created as a sign to the British that we are now a separate country and a separate entity. When that sign was created, we were still in bondage. So those amendments that they brought forth from that we fought for didn't cover us. The Star Spangled Banner came about as a sign of hope, as a part of the War of 1812 when they were attacking Fort Henry. And that's where that song came about. The Star Spangled Banner, the home of the free, the land of the brave, and all of those different things, that's where that came about. However, at that same time, we were still in slavery and we were still in bondage. So what you want us to peacefully and quietly accept is you want us to peacefully and quietly accept two symbols of Americanism, which we fully understand that they're Americanism, but you also have to understand that those two symbols of Americanism also represent a time where Americanism didn't protect us from any of the atrocities that were going on. And you have to understand that people have their feelings and their way about that. And the divisive approach that came about to divide the people into, well, if you take a stance against this, you take a stance against America, and that's not the case. No one has taken a stance against America. What they have taken a stance against is injustices invoked by particular individuals. And when you attempt to silence those people, for them expressing their feelings about real things that are going on, you can only expect that things like this are going to get worse. Now, for us and for the players, everyone is trying to take this quiet approach, and we continue to want to take this quiet approach, but you can't even silence us. You can't continue to silence us, even our quiet approach, because our voices matter too. So if the incidences like the Tamir Rices and the Trayvon Martins and all of those different things, if those affect you and you have some sort of a feeling about that, a lot of times what we do as a people, we don't stick together. When we will come organizing this boycott, we realized that we weren't the only people who weren't watching the NFL. You have many different people saying, I'm not watching football, I haven't watched football for the last 2 years, and so on and so forth. So it's not about not watching football. It's about all of us who agree that we should not support the NFL, to do it as a collective group together, because that's the only way our cries and our concerns are going to be brought to the forefront, is when we do it together. Because when they made that law, money was their bottom dollar. That was their bottom line. And so now what we need to do is offer the NFL a financial counteroffer where we're saying, okay, we're not happy with the decision that you made, and what we're hoping from everyone who watches this or see the social media posts or whatever, what we're hoping is that your desire to show a respect for families of people like Eric Garner, we're hoping that your desire to show respect for them overcomes your desire to watch a football game, so that we can stand together and show in a unified way, to show that we respectfully disagree and we respectfully request the government to address our grievances, and the First Amendment allows us to do that.
I don't know who wants to answer this, but why do you think that the NFL made up such a rule? What do you think was the catalyst for the NFL making that rule up?
I'm of the opinion that it began to bring negative attention at the beginning of games, and that the game was no longer about, when the game was starting, the Star Spangled Banner being sung, but about who was kneeling during the Star Spangled Banner. Okay, that's fine, but that was the point of the protest, that we want to talk about the social injustices, and that during the Star Spangled Banner, that will get the attention of the people. The problem is that it's no secret that it came at a time where the current president took an approach to change the narrative of why the player was kneeling, and stopped and said, oh, he's being unpatriotic. Because the reality of the situation is that he was kneeling, and it was what it was. People understood why he was kneeling, and it went from there. Once they tried to change the narrative and say that he was being disrespectful to the flag, and that he was being unpatriotic, and he didn't respect the soldiers that fought and died for this country, then it began to bring negative attention. Now, the reality of the situation is this: the current president is a constant agitator. He's a constant antagonist. Anything that he doesn't like, he's going to attempt to change the narrative and make it become something different other than what it is. And we're stopping and we're saying, listen, the commissioner of the NFL, though he may be friends with the president, though he may be a businessman and a millionaire and a billionaire like the president, for him to take sides with the president and stop and say, oh yeah, he is being disrespectful, without even talking to the players, without even sitting down and talking with the man to find out why he's doing what he's doing and to find an amicable resolution, then that's wrong. And we can see that the position that they took has even gone widespread, because now there's even a case of collusion going on where the man can no longer find work, and another player by the name of Eric Reed can no longer find work, and whether they are acceptable to play in the NFL or not is a subject for debate. But the reality is that before this happened, nobody was discussing it like that. But once the narrative began to change, then it became, oh, well, they're being disrespectful to the flag. So I say this, the reason why it came about is because of the current antagonist, which is the president of this country. However, what made it pick up steam is when the NFL stopped and made this policy. And when they made this policy, the policy seems clearly targeted toward one player, and that is trying to silence the people.
Ultimately, the NFL is ran by the owners. The commissioner works for the owner.
Agreed.
Don't you think that the owners should be held accountable for the actions and because that policy could not have been passed without the owners' approval? So in which way we could hold like the owners accountable, and which way can the players hold the owners accountable and changing this policy?
Well, again, regarding holding the owners accountable for the policy, whether it be players or so on and so forth, going back to reiterating that First Amendment, the First Amendment is they have the right to freedom of speech. So when you start to abridge people's rights, then that's when you become you start to create a deeper issue. And that's another reason why it began to gain so much steam, is because now you're abridging people's rights of freedom of speech. And when you set the precedent that it's okay to abridge people's rights of freedom of speech, then you will have other owners in other workplaces begin to start to do the same things when behaviors begin to crop up that are not against the law. However, they are not for what they call, for lack of a term, good for proper business. One of the things that we saw in those first few weeks of the protests, after the owners began to pull back from the protest, yet there were players that continued to protest, what started to happen is you started to see divisive tactics. You started to see team members divided against each other. Team members who had served in the military looking at other team members who were just there to protest and then play the game, and now they started to look at each other differently because of these divisive tactics. And with the antagonists that continued to come about, what started to happen is fans began to get involved. And fans started to say, yes, those players aren't right for doing this. And that was based on the divisive tactics of telling everybody that they're anti-American and anti-patriotic. And that's where these divisive tactics start to come into play. So as far as the players holding accountable, honestly, if you think about it, the players who represent this minority, who are actually the majority, 70% of the players, if you had those 70% of the players call a sick out like unions do and not show up to work, then that would create another issue. But that's not the approach that they took, which they could have taken. I'm just going to jump back a couple of years with the NBA players after Donald Sterling made the comments that he made. And there were many different calls, the players shouldn't play, and they should do a variety of different things. But again, those players continue to show up to work, those players continue to play, and after a while a resolution and a stance was taken. But at this point, to answer your question on how the players should hold the owners accountable, you're right, it is the owners, and at this point, perhaps the players don't have as much power in their hand to hold the owners accountable. But guess what? We as the fans, we are the ones who buy NFL paraphernalia. We are the ones who go, knowing that if you go to an NFL game, you can be guaranteed that evening that you're going to spend at an NFL game is probably close to $1,000 evening, with the cost of the tickets and the food and the jersey that you're going to buy and all of those different things. So we as fans, we need to hold the owners accountable, and the only way that you hold people accountable is by financial withdrawal and financial restraint. Because at the point where they see that, yes, we're serious about this, and we are collectively causing our voices to be heard by the owners that, listen, regardless of how you choose to deal with the players, guess what? The NFL works for us, because we're the ones who watch, we're the ones who support. And if we withdraw that support, showing that we're unhappy or dissatisfied with the method and the approach in which they're taking regarding an issue that's very real in our communities and very real to us. When you have men that walk down the street or you know, go about throughout their neighborhoods, and you have the fear of all types of repercussions just because who you are, and when people stand up against that, we as a people need to support the people who stand up against that. So we need to support the players in their play. We need to support people that are calling for our voice to be heard. Because again, our voice cannot be silenced. I think one of the things that we need to consider is we all have a right, and everybody speaks out, and we need to use our collective voices wisely to make sure everyone understands our clearly articulated point of view, which is we're not happy with people being shot down in the street. We're not happy with how people just seem to get off all the time, every single incident. We're not happy with that, and we plan to use our collective voice to voice that, and we're hoping that anyone else who is unhappy or disenfranchised with the things that are going on, not with the country, not with the flag, not with the song, but disenfranchised with the events that are happening constantly in our communities, we're hoping that you will also hold the owners accountable.
What do you think about Nike's stance with supporting Colin Kaepernick with the new ad? What do you think about that?
So Nike as a company, in essence, they have a bottom line. Their bottom line is to sell shoes. So I think what happens with individuals is that they take a lot of these things out of proportion, and they make more out of it than what it is. It's no different from their slogan, just do it. They just have something that shows Kaepernick in a certain light because he decided to make a protest. And like most marketing, it'll pass. But my stance, my issue has more to do with the people who are deciding to all of a sudden burn their Nikes and not support Nike because of something that they feel like they don't like. You know, it's not showing any discrimination, it's not inflammatory, it's not hurtful, it's not bigoted. You know, so it's any of that, but what I do see is that a lot of things are happening to bring a lot of the racist element in America to the forefront. There's people who are psychologically damaged because of their indoctrination interracial thinking. And because America has practiced it so long without any real transition or change to humanism. When I say humanism, it becomes inhuman or it dehumanizes people when you are practicing racism towards them. But not only does it dehumanize the people that are affected by racism, it dehumanizes the people who are oppressing people. And for years, you know, people can't consciously take things that are different or things that they feel that are expressive. And that culture has to change. The change has to come where you can't be offended by something that's different, a change in culture, a change in attitude, or somebody trying to express themselves. And you have people that are violently offended by these things. A lot of these deaths that you see that are happening in our communities are because people feel like they just have the right to do it. And we want to make sure that making sure that people don't have or shouldn't be comfortable with slaying of innocent youth by the authorities. If the stance is taken,
by somebody who has a platform to do such, that stance should be supported. If you don't want to support the stance, you don't have to. But the whole thing that you see, with small things like that, it shows that the climate of this country is almost to a point of insanity when a small thing like an ad can get you to a point where you can burn your jerseys, your clothes, and the funny thing about it is it'll probably be over tomorrow. The issue will be over tomorrow, but the hatred that people have, the visceral hatred that people have in their heart, it's so evident now, and even with these small things, it's coming out so much each day. And if something happens again that doesn't fit into, your mold or your way of thinking, we get violent. And we have to look at that as a nation, as those of us who live in this country as an American people. Why are we so violent against things that are different, that are even non-violent in nature, but it's expressive, but it doesn't fit with your mode of thinking. So we have to really explore that, and it just shows, and now because of that, I'm not going to go out and buy Nikes, because that's not going to make me more pro-black or anything like that. But it just shows what can happen when the way Americans think, when things don't go their way, how they feel that they can express themselves. It's not a good thing.
The advertisement that they put forth, I think that if you look at it in nature, the statement that they put forth was a statement that are a part of American values. The statement is something that is taught all the time, that you need to stand up for what you believe in, regardless of the consequence. That's a statement that's put forth. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything, and all of those different types of statements is something that's put forth all the time. But like Chief Naftali Bindan just said, the issue comes when you have people who are so ingrained in their personal feelings and their personal biases and prejudices that they want their views and their understanding of things to be respected, yet they don't want to extend that same courtesy and respect to other people and their views. If Nike had made that ad with no face, with a blank picture, that ad would have been great. Right. It would have been beautiful, and they would have took that ad and they would have supported it, and they would have said, this is what American values are all about. Standing up for what's important, standing up for what you believe in. But the second that you put a face, but not only just a face, but a disenfranchised face, now that becomes an issue. I remember the movie A Time to Kill, where the lawyer was speaking to the jury, he was doing his final presentation to the jury, and he asked them to close their eyes. And he asked them to he gave a scenario with their eyes closed. And he talked about the violence that had happened to that young girl in depth and in detail. And then at the end of his speech, he said to them, now imagine if she was white. And everyone's face changed, because that's not something that when you ask them to close your eyes that they could picture it. Once you actually were able to picture it, and the picture was not in accordance with something that you felt was based on any type of sanity or reality that you understood, then it became a problem. That ad was well done, and the only reason that ad created an issue was because of the face that you attached to it. I remember years back, I believe it was an AT&T commercial, when they were talking about AT&T national calling, and when they went to Ireland, they had Irish people, and when they went to England, they had English people, and so on and so forth. And when they got to Africa, there was a monkey standing on
a map of Africa. And that was the depiction that they put forth. And one of the things that I just think that we all do it. We all have our prejudices and our biases, and it's okay. It's okay for everyone to feel the way that they feel. But as long as you can express it in a manner that's respectful to everyone else, then it shouldn't be an issue, because we're all people and we're all different. The ad was a beautiful ad. The slogan was great. The people who are upset about it are upset because of the photo that was attached to it.
You good? You bet. So, as far as how can people get in contact with the organization, how can people contact you in order to join or to show support? You got any kind of email, social media?
Yeah, the best way now is via Facebook. That's the greatest audience, but you can also visit our website, www.amzadik.org. We do have some contact information.
How do you spell that?
Ahm Zadik is AHMZADIK.
Thank you. Anything else? Any closing statements?
Yeah. I'm going to say this. You know, and the multiple people I've been talking to about the boycott in the days to come, I started this off with why boycott the NFL. You know, football is something that we all love. And unfortunately, when we boycott, people feel that we're taking away from them something that they love. Well, football is a thing that I love just as much as any other person. But don't be confused between the sport and the issue at hand. The boycott is important because there are certain inalienable rights that we have that's being taken away when the NFL attempts to silence us when we want to do our silent protests. Trust me when I tell you, when they did the Montgomery boycotts, when Martin Luther King Jr. was telling people to either carpool or walk to work, there were some people that thought he was absolutely crazy for asking them to find alternative means to get to work. Eventually, people understood the issue at hand and understood that it was important enough for them to actually sacrifice something than to continue to allow people to promote racist ideals and things that are against their rights as human beings. We're saying that for sports, and in 2018, sports is being used as a divisive means in racism and the different things that we do that don't allow somebody to obscure the picture when we stop and we say, boycott the NFL. The NFL has the opportunity to do the right thing. All they have to do is get rid of that racist policy and enact something that's an amicable resolution for all parties involved and allow us to move forward. But until we get to that point, then this boycott still will continue to go on. I ask that you all continue to boycott it in the season, find alternative means of things that you can do. College football is still okay, local sports are still okay, basketball is still okay. But as long as this policy is in place and until the NFL reacts, then use your buying power. Use your dollar to let the NFL know about how they feel and allow them to change this policy.